Welcome everyone to One Voice, another episode coming to you from Unity Museum. Today I'm joined by Cameron. Would you introduce yourself, sir?
Yeah, I'm Cameron Cook. I'm the assistant manager here.
Excellent, excellent. So, in today's digital age, it is important that we remember how we got here, why we're here, and where we're going. So, we're excited for your input in the history of the computer. Who invented it and why, and the story behind it, if you may.
Well, the museum here primarily focuses on the past 200 years of history.
Excellent, excellent.
So that's a good place to start talking about what exactly you're computing. Well, the whole thing started with, you can see here is what they called figured and fancy designs. If you look close, you can see these are figures. And then there's another figure, and then here's some fancy parts.
Yes, yes.
So the loom was used, it was originally put together, 1801 was the first jacquard loom. They started really 1730 was the first machine loom that was used to make these blankets. Now by 1876, the majority, but almost all of the blankets in homes were woven by a machine by 1876. So it just goes to show you that from 1730, when it first started,
going back.
So this was only for obviously people who could get a nice woven blanket. You can see why you would want one.
So, and the blanket is essential to human life, and the computer helped in its inception. A better blanket.
No, what they had was called the jacquard loom, and so it had. I wish we could just go over and show you the loom.
Right.
And so what they actually do, this is a loom, is the punch card lets something come through here, and then you slide the shuttle through, and then it does it again for every single one of them, and then eventually, see, this is from a jacquard loom, and you can see there's some fancy parts, and then here's the figure. Zoom in over there. Check out those eagles.
Wow.
Those are figures.
So the counting machine was able to enhance not just lives, but also looks like art.
No, that was the loom. That was the jacquard with the loom attachments.
Right.
It could replicate
anything.
Let me show you this is 100 years after Carl Babbage had drawn up the schematics.
Wow, it looks more like a little mini computer keyboard. Nice.
You could do addition, subtraction, you name it.
Looks like 10.
Prints a receipt.
It prints like a modern receipt. Nice. Counting machine.
That was what they were designing. Computer. That's what.
Wow.
1830.
1830.
He dreamed it up, and then Ada.
Wow.
Ada said,
like
"Wait a second."
Typewriter,
yeah, right. Yeah. Okay, that's good. Cool.
Nice.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for that, and look forward to learning more about.
Yeah.
Wow.
There we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
This is 1900.
1900.
Well, 18.
From 1800 to 1900.
1890. Try picking this thing up.
Oh, I'm sure it's heavy.
No.
Oh my God, it's so heavy.
You're big, but I don't know.
It's heavy.
Yeah, solid.
They don't make them like they used to anymore.
No, they don't need to do that anymore.
Which one is this? This is the first laptop?
No, this is just the computer. We're just,
Computer. Nice.
what do you want me to type?
Welcome to the new age.
Oh, yeah. 1850 was the one we were looking at.
Right.
Yeah.
But volume 5 brings us all the way to 1950, where we have a...
Yeah, but you can just see we got the
Wow.
exhibit. And this is the old adding machine. The business owner knew how it works.
Right,
It's from
so
China.
this was proprietary.
Yes.
Interesting.
Just to keep accounting of everything.
Okay, good. It
But
seems...
you can actually do your multiplication with this.
Wow. How does it work?
That's nobody knows.
So here we have the first laptop.
Yeah,
Right.
this just hooks right into
Wow.
there, and then there's a. Come here. Plug this to.
And then
You get the handle there.
the handle, and then I see a screen there. Just, it's sort of like a modern laptop, just disintegrated, you know. Nice. Anything you can say about this machine?
There's a place to put floppy disks in here. You can see there's some in there now.
And then
Or your novel,
push.
or whatever you're working on. Oh, don't take those out. Those are from the factory.
Okay.
So yeah, that's how it works.
So just put it in here
Yep.
and then type, and we'll show.
Easy
Yeah.
peasy.
The modern laptop
Yeah.
person would have to,
No, imagine though,
Understand.
you gotta lug this thing around with you.
yeah, it's heavy. It's so much for a laptop, you know. But it's fascinating.
Oh, and
Fascinating.
a lady named Ada Lovelace. She was the son of Lord Byron, and so she kind of had some idea about. Well, she was a mathematician, and had some idea about what was happening in the world. Some stats include 1830.
1830.
Well, 1811, this is a very common statistic.
Right.
There were 15,000 Jacquard looms in France. That's,
The whole world, or just...
they were invented 1801, and then by 1815, there were 11,000 Jacquard looms in France.
Wow.
So she knew about this because in the 1820s, she was in London, and they had to do a lot of catch up.
Right.
With over in the old country, and knew what her father and her colleagues were all working on. So they had to get their factories to. You can retrofit a loom. They had looms already, but you can retrofit them with the Jacquard attachment.
Right. So that's an addition.
So
innovation.
it's not just any blanket. It's
Right.
one of these guys.
Okay.
So she was. I have a nice quote from her.
Okay.
It's because she was working with an individual. But how do we get to what was going on in her life?
Right.
Well, you can see.
Inspiration.
Yeah. What does this have to do with engines?
Right.
Um,
Computers. You know, I figure computers help the engines as well.
In 1830, she had. There were the first railroads. I mean, there was one track in the UK, and you can see. This is what it was used for. I don't know if you can zoom in.
Yeah. Fascinating.
So you can see this is the first track, and it was a wooden boiler here, and then maybe copper lined inside, but there was wooden boiler, and they had a tendency to explode, so it was mainly used in mines.
Right.
But by 1830 in the UK, they had this royal carriage that would bring the mail. So being the daughter of Lord Byron, she knew about this. And here's the engine. Let me see if I can So this is the kind of freight. Okay, there's one of the old wooden ones, and this is the revolutionary one here.
The revolution, the early computer.
Peter Cooper's Tom Thumb.
Okay.
1829 to 1830.
Wow.
And this was a big improvement because now they were smelting.
Right.
And they had a vertical smelted metal boiler here. So
Right.
this was the engine.
Right.
And when it's got streamlined like this, and they could actually like just make one out of metal and be like, yeah, this is going to work.
Right.
Then they started to put them in factories.
Right.
So that you could have, instead of people working in factories, you could just have a machine. Now, Queen Victoria outlawed slavery in 1835.
Wow.
Because she realized what was happening in all the British colonies. 1820s, 1830s, they were trying to, get their factories going so everybody could have blankets.
Right, right. So the computer was instrumental in the daily lives.
Well, the Jacquard loom was a punch card attachment that could bring in designs from all over the world.
Right.
And so Ada Lovelace knew about this, and
So
she was working. Well,
creativity and innovation, right?
No, the machine. Yeah, the loom machine sparked innovation. People could. I mean, there were a lot of people that could see these.
Right.
And they'd say, how did somebody
How
do
did
this?
you make it?
Nope, nobody did that.
Right. It was a machine that did that.
And meanwhile, they were just coming out with engines. See, this is what a machine was for.
Right.
Okay. So you have, this is what it was for, but this is what it looked like. So this is an engine, an early one, a good one. And you can see the big old wheel.
Right.
Well, this is 1800. By 1830, they could put these in factories. So this was on a river, and this could do the work of that.
Right on.
And before, in factories, you had these big old wheel and a person here. Now, obviously, they're not doing furniture.
Right.
It's a lathe, but they're not just making a chair leg. They had to be so big because they're working on metal. And here's an iron bridge.
Fascinating.
Very early one.
The computer.
So to make every single screw,
Yeah.
they had to use a lathe, a metal lathe. And so the engine really helped with that. Now, there was an individual named Carls Babbage. He was her tutor. And he was also a mathematician, but he was a little eccentric and understood what was going on with machines at that time.
Okay. Very good. So
she started working with him when she was 18.
Wow.
And that's where it kind of gets interesting because he was making basically an adding machine.
Right.
But they're mathematicians, so they were doing like calculus. And more than just addition and subtraction, but he was just trying to make a machine that could do this, that could integrate and do differentials.
So you can almost say this is like early AI.
No,
You get a machine to help.
It's just the numbers, right?
Right.
So this is a quote from Ada Lovelace, little 18-year-old here. The analytical engine, AE.
AE.
It stands for analyze anything.
Right on.
That's what it stands for, or analyze everything.
Analyze everything.
So the AE has no pretensions to originate anything. It can do whatever we know how to order it to perform.
Excellent. So
it can.
What we tell it.
Whatever you put into the machine, that's what you get out.
Right.
And she was with her teacher, Carls Babbage. He was a little older than her and was kind of trying. He never actually constructed his machine until 2 years ago. But he drew up all of the schematics, a great mathematician, and figured out how to make a basic adding machine in 1830. But she was looking at this same machine and said, well, what if you just hook it up to because it's just a little tiny cranker.
Right.
But what if you make it bigger,
okay.
hook it up to the loom, weaving. At first she says, what if you weave music? Well, what if you weave formulas?
Oh, the possibilities.
They were really into their math, and so they really liked to see everything through that lens.
Good.
So that was their mindset, but she was also surrounded with her Lord Byron and the court, and so she could say, wait a second, I see the potential here.
Excellent. So with the innovation of the counting machine, aka early computer, it spread through different aspects of people's lives, improving them. Thank you for that wonderful lesson in metallurgy and the early computing and how it enhanced humanity. Thank you, Cameron. Heard from Cameron here at Unit Museum, and now we're so excited. We're joined by Zabine, the founder of the museum, who actually lived through much of the computer history. Tell us, if you may, how was the world before computers and all that?
Yeah, and that really is because of this opportunity. It kind of made me reflect, where was my first introduction to the computer world, right? But being born in 1942, World War I Germany, so really my going to school, so to speak, really was pencil, papers, and a little bit later typewriters. That was a big advancement, was typewriters. And and radio, right? But during my era, television didn't yet exist. And so eventually I then began to wander around the world, 65 countries later.
Nice.
But I arrived in the United States in 65. Now, we know that from Cameron's talk that the 60s was really the explosion of the personal computer idea.
Right, the laptop.
The laptop and Bill Gates and Lakeside School and all of that.
And you have a personal connection?
Yeah, I've known him, and because my husband's family all went to Lakeside, that's the school that Bill Gates went to school. But let's reflect for a minute on 1830 when it all began. Now we know it started in Great Britain, right? In London. And London at that time was the largest city in the world. There was no city in the world that came even close in its explosion. And I'll get back to that just a little bit, but we're sitting here in the U.S.
Yes.
So in the U.S. in 1830, we had about 12.9 million people. Andrew Jackson was the president.
Right.
And we only had 24 states. So the westward bound from the Mississippi River was beginning to advance. And so we went through Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, Missouri, and, so westward bound. We have seen all the movies with the wagons and all of that, right?
On west.
And that was when the idea or the early experimentation already in London began. So our president of the United States at that time, he really began to introduce the idea, the rise of the common man politics. It was really run by plantation white privilege.
Right.
And all of a sudden, the white common man, right, Andrew Jackson began to promote it, the expansion of the voting rights for most white men, with very strong nationalism, and of course, a fierce conflict between banking and federal powers. So in this country now we're looking, So, but it was also bad news because you had the Forced Native American Removal Act and expansion of slavery, 2 million. and intensifying sectional tensions, because the Indian Removal Act was the law authorized removal of Native Americans from the southeastern U.S. to lands west of the Mississippi. And if we look at that, that was really still very much of a suppression.
Oh yeah.
Right? Okay,
Yeah.
so that's now the idea is born. And Kamen went to the loom and,
Right,
went through
yes.
all of that ad nauseum, I'm sure. And, but then let's go, here I am, 84. And I born in 42 Germany, typewriter and pencils and ink pen. I was very proud I had an ink pen. That was
It
the
was a
big,
big deal.
the big deal, the sign of privilege I felt. Anyway, I arrived finally, I immigrated to England, and I then went to Canada. But my first introduction really we're talking about computers today, was in the US. So I arrived in the US in 65. And I immediately had to go find a job. My husband and I were both poor, and he was a teacher, and
Immigrants.
immigrants from this country, and everything was new, from food to music to people. It was in Hawaii, and Hawaii was Asian, so I was out of my own cultural environment, right? 72% Asian was different.
Yeah.
So I said, okay, it's different, and here we are, right? And so I applied as a open account teller at a savings and loan company owned by German people. And they hired me because they felt sorry for me as a German immigrant, I think. Anyway, so he introduces me to the bank. And then he said, oh, by the way, there's just one more thing. I want to show you how we function here. And he takes me into the back room. And this is where the first time in my life I saw these massive rooms with massive computer equipment.
Wow.
I mean, it was intimidating.
I can imagine the whole room.
And I look at this, what does that do? What is so big and tick-a-tick, you know what I mean?
Right.
What is this thing? And I looked at
Taking
him,
away, huh?
terror-stricken. I said, I don't have to learn that, do I? And to me, it was just like, I think I'm not going to get this job, right? And he said, no, don't worry about it. They're all mechanical, and so don't you worry about that. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, this America. This is
Welcome to
real.
America,
That's
huh?
right. Welcome to America, 1960s. Later, my husband, he was really into technology, and he had the first Tandy computer.
Wow.
So I remember him coming home and bought this little box and put it on the table, and I looked at him like, what's that, right? And he says, wow, this is the new world. Look at that. You say, remember when you arrived in that big room? This is it now. This is sitting here in our living room.
Wow.
Actually in his office. Sitting in his office. And I said to him, what do you do with it? What is that? And my son was just ready to graduate from high school in Maui.
Right.
And he comes to visit. He was living with his dad at the time being, and he just had written his final paper on science. And we had in Maui a big telescope on top of Mauna Loa, right?
Yeah.
So he was all into astronomy. And he looks at our Tandy and he says, what's this, And he said, well, it's called a computer. And so my son said, can you teach me how something like this works? And he felt so on the leading edge of his other high school kids, right? So he was going to go back and show off that he had heard and was introduced to a computer.
Oh my God.
And he contacted then the observatory and said he had a computer down here, and how could he use a computer with the technology for showing off, right? And his final paper was going to be the real cool paper.
Right on.
And so this was really, so it was my first introduction. Then I saw my son's own introduction from going in a massive room to a small little thing on the table, which was really an amazing thing. And then I know JT, my late husband, he began to train himself and teach himself and so on. And I was sort of began to travel around the world, but most places didn't yet really have computers at that time.
Right.
But let me come back for a little bit to the world. I got lost in my own life. Well,
Okay,
that's
the real world.
you know, the 1830s. So slavery, we had about 2 million people, 2 million slaves in this country. But the other thing that was moving along was really a religious and spiritual movement in the 1830s in this country. Very interesting, because most of them were Protestants.
Wow.
But all of a sudden here you have what you call the Second Great Awakening.
Right.
This is where you have the Mormons, Seventh-day Adventists, Jehovah's Witnesses, all breaking away from what you call mainstream Protestant
Right.
religions, right? And they have their own interpretation of Scripture,
Right.
and certainly their own dogmas that began to really take on a fervor in this country, which was in the early 40s.
Right.
Interestingly, in May 23rd, 22nd, 1844, is where you get the first Morse code go around the world, what God has wrought. Isn't that interesting? All of a sudden, you've got religion,
Yes. And
industry,
and technology.
and technology coming out.
Right.
Because in the Bible it says, at that time, when that spiritual awakening will occur, all knowledge will explode. Well, hello. We're going global, and we're saying, what's this, right? And little did we know, it was already given birth to in 1830.
Mm-hmm.
By 1844, the Morse code brought communication around the world.
Wow.
And by World War II, the idea, you know, we all went through the loom and all of that, right?
Yeah.
So, but the idea was born, and with the idea, not the equipment arrived in this country, but the idea came here. And that was out of sheer need because we were in World War II. Mm-hmm. So now communication and equipment was becoming a real major innovation that needed to happen and in a hurry. Mm-hmm. Now, so what was happening? So abolitionism became onto the agenda. Women's activism came on the agenda. The temperance campaigns in this country was here, and educational reform. You know, that's a really major upheaval in
Move forward.
that's a lot of moving forward, very steep, very fast, and very rapid. And so therefore, if we even look at transportation and technology, right? Here we go, okay. Yeah. So the U.S. was entering really a transportation revolution at that time. So canals, you know, the Erie Canal, railroads began to appear, and steamship travel came onto the scene. We're talking 1840s now, 30s, 40s, right? However, we must remember, at that time, so this is leading up to, there was no telegraph yet in 1840, because it didn't happen until 44.
Right.
No telegraph, no electricity in any home, anywhere.
Wow.
And most travel was done by horse, wagon, or boat. So when we say from the Missouri River, Mississippi River westward, they weren't getting on a train, were they?
Right.
Or an airplane, right?
Horse.
They were getting on the horses and wagons, or trains were slowly happening, right? And then they went through complex territories where it wasn't easy. Right. And so, but the major cities at that time in the United States was New York, Philadelphia, Boston, Baltimore, and New Orleans. Those were your key cities the hubs in this country. Right. Now, Europe at that time, so let's just, because it started in London, right? So let's talk Europe for a second. So Europe was still adjusting after the Napoleonic Wars. So that was revolution and wars in Europe. So the old monarchies tried to restore stability after the French Revolution, but, here comes the but, right? So, but revolutionary ideas were spreading nationalism, constitutional government, and liberal reform. So a new wave, not only of governing,
Right.
and people empowerment, right? Andrew Jackson and white men voting and things of that nature, right? So France went through the July Revolution and overthrew King Charles the Tenth. So there went royalty, right? And he was, of course, replaced by Louis Philippe. Now, the Belgian Revolution led to Belgian separation from the Netherlands. And I'm just giving a little background, okay.
Fascinating history.
Well, thank you. Poland launched the November uprising against the Russian Empire. So there goes that Euro-Russian, right? Poland is going against the Russian Empire. And the British Empire was the world's dominant naval and industrial power. So the important development is a very rapid industrialization.
Right.
Huge textile, that's why I come and keep talking about the loom. Huge textile factories, okay? Then expansion of empire and growing railroads. Railroads were a big deal because as she showed you the locomotive and so we're kind of tying it up a little bit in that. But the conditions at that time were harsh because you had child labor, dangerous factories and fires and urban poverty. So Latin America, most of the Latin America had recently gained independence from Spain. So they started to break away. And like Simón Bolívar and José de San Martín, but we won't go into that. Now Russia, the Russian Empire, was okay. However, many new republics were politically unstable in Central South America.
Right.
They broke away from Spain, but it was unstable, right? So Russian Empire was enormous and autocratic under Nicholas. So serfdom still dominated rural life. You had the haves and the have-nots. Now, the Ottoman Empire, which is in Persia.
Right.
The Ottoman Empire and the Qajar dynasty in Iran. I happen to be a Baha'i. And the Baha'i faith starts in 1844. So it comes right at that time, And then the founder of the Baha'i faith says, men and women will be equal now. And industrialization, and he says that all races are one. There's no separation between the races. At that time, that was unthinkable, and that every man and woman have to be educated, mandatory education. That was a threat to not only churches and religions, because at that time, when you look at time Christ, Flat Earth Society, most of the world were illiterate. Only 2 of the apostles could read and write. Right? It was an illiterate world, and education of everybody. I mean, they can read their own Bibles now.
Whoa.
Luther, right? Okay. Yeah. And so if you look at 18-something, it's not that far from Martin Luther, really. And so now the global community became educated, including women's education. That's why the early inventor of the computer was what? A woman was part of that.
Right on.
And so you can see where the principle, especially for me as a Baha'i, principles are right up there. For me, where I can see the wheels are turning.
Yes.
They're getting into motion and they're trickling out here and there. And China, let's just quickly talk about China. So the Qing dynasty remained one of the world's largest civilizations. And China still is huge as far as numerical, right?
Yeah,
I mean, China is exploring into Africa. It's building infrastructure everywhere. China, Xi was part of launching about a month and a half ago that New World Order, Russia, China, Africa, Venezuela, Brazil. So we're looking at the globalization because we started off with the League of Nations, went to United Nations, moving into World Federation, and that new world order is part of that yellow brick road, going into a global order.
Yes.
And trade, economy, and technology is really vital to that.
It seems like.
And so therefore, science and culture, at the 1830s, it was the era of Romanticism, because, it's scientific discovery and early industrial technology.
Right.
So important figures at that time talking about culture was Beethoven, Ludwig von Beethoven, 1827.
Nice.
Okay,
Wow.
you had Johann Wolfgang von Goethe and Darwin. So we're going, oh, now ain't that interesting,
interesting.
right? So all of a sudden, evolution,
Oh, yeah.
DNA.
Yeah.
So technology theories and ideas, some of it became classic, some of it was overthrown, right?
With the invention of the computer,
Yeah.
or as it was,
Yeah.
it spurred such a dramatic change.
Yeah, from labor to
From labor to
yeah,
machines.
that's right.
To all that. And now we find ourselves today with AI
Yeah,
going mainstream, and it seems to me like we're living in the same time period as
we're coming out of the cave.
coming out of the
That's
cave
of knowledge, right? For the
yeah.
average person, not just the university professors
Right.
or, well, I give you myself as an example, okay?
Yes.
I use AI at least 24, maybe 36 times every day.
Right.
Why do I use it? Because I fear when I engage here at the museum with all these students and visitors from global community, from middle schools all the way through PhD levels, and these kids are all going into different diverse fields of study.
Right.
And then they ask me, because I ask them, where in 2050 will you be, right? And then they'll come to me through their window of study.
Right.
And so, whether it's medicine, engineering, whether it's literature, if I didn't have AI, I'm in ChatGPT myself, and I'm looking at Claude, okay?
Right.
So if I didn't have ChatGPT, I would look there and I would just stare at them, because I really wouldn't be able to respond. But because they'd say that they use a terminology I'm unfamiliar with, I have ChatGPT open right there in front of me. As they're talking, I bring it up, I glance down, and I can keep up with them.
Excellent.
And so therefore, ChatGPT allows even a senior citizen like me to be relevant in conversation to a 20-year-old. Because without ChatGPT, I wouldn't always understand what quantum entanglement is, or what the particle and waves are all about, or what is symmetry, or what is the field of the growth of civilization through education, culture, and the arts.
Right.
See, and so we have to be really flexible on the learning curve. And without AI, I mean, in my younger days, if you had money, you had a lexicon or encyclopedia on your shelf.
Right.
And then you had to figure out which book, what page, and study and read, and and they were so expensive.
Right.
In my hometown, my family, after the war, we were devastated. We couldn't afford it. So there was no computer, there was no encyclopedia at my home.
Absolutely.
And so how do you get your knowledge, right?
That's the truth.
Absolutely. And because I was apparently a little bit ahead in my class, so I graduated from high school at 15, which was really early. Quite young, and if you look at a 15-year-old today. But my mother said, well, you graduate from high school, out you go. Out you go. Mom, I'm 15. Yeah, and what are you talking about? Go find a job. And so I went to Bonn in South Germany at a hotel, diplomatic hotel, and no computers there either, but people from around the world.
Right.
I thought, right.
Amazing.
So coming back now to technology, really people did not even airplanes were just out of the average man's ships were the way and trains were the way. I went to England, right, as an au pair. Then I arrived there at 16, 17, right, in London. I mean, you talk about going to the capital of the world at the age of 16. That was from my little town of 18,000 to suddenly over 1 million people. And I'd never seen that many other people in my life, right?
And so technology kind of
And technology, thank God to ships, we were able to do, but computers were not on the agenda yet. And so, and that happened for me until I got to Hawaii, right? And then when I was hired, and then when I got married, there was a little Tandy computer. And then, and that was really at a very rapid development. And all I can say is that my sensibility, and you know, sometimes I say this to the kids, but it's really sort of unthinkable. I think we're looking at an age of chip implant. Instead of going through AI and looking up and bringing it up on the iPad or whatever, I think we're going to have chip implant right in your brain.
Yes. So it brings up a fascinating point. Do you think that AI and technology in general has served as a bridge?
Yeah.
And will serve as a bridge among humanity?
Instant knowledge capacity.
Right.
Okay, so we can no longer say, well, I live in this little village of 400 people, because chances are, if we are to, let's just dream for a minute, okay? Right. So here's in a little village in India that has about 500 people in it, right? And we're going to have this little baby is born, and the little chip goes in, and off it goes to stitch it up, and by the time it's, you know, a month old, it's already implanted.
Right.
And then it will gain knowledge according to its capacity to be able to know what to ask. And this is where maturation of civilization will then take place. So knowledge will be there in its full glory, available.
Right.
But if you don't know the questions, you can't get the answers. So I think learning and future development will be according to the need in your neighborhood.
Right.
Now, I'm not talking, but I will just mention things like, climate change, back to the cave, upsala, right? Or nuclear power, upsala, right?
Yeah.
And so yet here we are, chip implanted.
That's correct. So if with the chip planting at the personal level, it just seems it will allow for global oneness, interconnectedness,
equal opportunity to knowledge,
equal voice.
Yes.
And I think, given what if I understand correctly, it is
global communication.
It's better communication,
yeah,
better interaction, better understanding, and so the machine or technology is not just about machines and equipment, but our lives.
Absolutely, our decision making.
Yes.
Our taking out of global knowledge what is useful for the street where you live. What do I need? Let's say food goes down, water goes down, blah, 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 you know, whatever. Some drone dropped the wrong stuff and people got sick or whatever it is, right? And here you are now stuck in your village and communication, Wi-Fi has been disconnected into, right? And not even electricity, no Wi-Fi, right? Exactly, right? And here we have a chip implant.
The chip will take care of it.
That's right. So all of a sudden we have knowledge, and we'll say, man, how gonna grow rice or potatoes?
Boom, 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 boom.
That's it. There you go. And I think that will be the survival mechanism. I think even banking will be totally destructed and reconstructed.
Right.
Where, in my opinion, I think that the bartering will come back. That meaning you have just because you don't have a job doesn't mean you don't have value because you have knowledge.
Exactly.
Right?
Because knowledge with everybody.
That's
having
power.
Chip.
Knowledge always has been power, and the
Yes.
powerful always try to stop
Absolutely.
the masses to have knowledge and reading and all of that, right? Because knowledge is power.
Yes. Yes. So, after the fascinating history that you've shared, and what's your conclusion? What's your message, especially to the audience
Yeah.
going forward?
So computers have allowed us to even envision a world in the future to a chip implant, right? That's a mini computer of some kind, isn't it? So, in my opinion, that we have come out of the cave from labor to technology, and will be emerging into an adjustment of the way Earthlings,
Right.
Earthlings will go back to basics such as housing, medicine, labor. How do you engage in survival? How do we communicate around the world? Young people, they love to communicate, social media, anywhere around the world. And I think technology is really that new pathway to a new world order of the future where you have integrity, meditation, spirituality, and education and technology all come together for the betterment of humankind, not for control one over the other. I think it will lead to no acceptance of war, because the drone wars and all of that is so getting so devastating that it literally can devastate and kill off humanity with just dropping bacteria wherever you want to, right? So the summary for me is that we need to be with young people, share with them 2050. The solutions are there.
Right.
Whether it's bartering, whether it is a chip implant, whether it is a whole new lifestyle where everybody has equal opportunity to knowledge. I think I see this as a rainbow bridge into a more bright future than as humanity we have never been able to experience.
Yes, yes.
And with our looking into the universe and traveling, technology is needed for everything.
Absolutely.
And for every new invention, there's always a process that we can then bring into somebody's living room.
Absolutely. So, thank you so much for that wonderful talk and discussion through the history and how we're here. And just look forward to more discussion
Yeah.
about the future. We need
Yes.
to be one humanity.
That's right. That's right.
Absolutely.
One world, that's what we're all about.
One
That's how we
voice,
met. And
one
there we
voice.
are.
Thank you,
There we
thank you.
go.
Thank you.
One voice.
One voice.
Yes.
Shake hands and say one voice.
Okay.
voice,
One voice, one
voice.
people.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.